Do you really need a home inspection? I mean, how bad can it be? I'm Angie Blanco, a realtor here in Miami, Florida with One Path Realty, and today we're talking all about home inspections. Are they really necessary? Can we just waive them and skip that part? What about my Uncle Bob? Can he just come in here and check out the house so we can save 500 bucks? We'll get into all of this and more, and I'll give you 5 tips to keep in mind during your home inspection window. So real quick, just to give you a brief rundown, after going under contract, you'll typically have between 5 to 15 days of an inspection window. And the more competitive the market, usually the shorter the time frame will be for this inspection window. And this time frame, whether it be 5, 10, or 15 days, is really your chance to do all of your due diligence. Really make sure that this house is actually a good fit for you and your family, and that you're aware of and okay with the actual conditions of it behind the walls. Not just what it looks like with a fresh coat of paint, because it's gonna look nice and looks can be deceiving.
Ouch.
And with that being said, I do believe that inspections are very necessary and should not be waived, whether the house was built in 1920 or if it's this year's brand new construction, because a lot of the most important parts of a house cannot be seen just by walking through it, whether it's brand new or pretty old.
I'm old!
I also want to mention that the market is really competitive right now, so I've seen buyers waive entirely their inspection contingencies just to get their offer accepted. I definitely would not suggest doing this. I would go about it a different way so that all of our bases are covered. However, it's entirely up to you. Anyway, let's get into these 5 tips. Number 1, you're going to want to hire a reputable inspector. Now, this shouldn't be just anyone, not your Uncle Bob, sorry, and not the first sponsored search result on Google, but ideally someone who comes recommended or who you found that's experienced in the field and in that type of home that you're buying. If you don't know of any or just don't want to look for one, your realtor should have some recommendations. They've most likely sold many homes in the past and have gone through a number of inspections to know which inspectors provide quality service, an easy to understand inspection report, and who's going to be available, most importantly, to answer any questions should we have any.
Hello.
Number 2, know the scope of work that'll be performed at your inspection. Most general inspectors will check the entire home in general, but not specific things like septic tanks, pools, do any mold tests, or check radon gas levels. They won't look at fences, lead paint, and so on. These might be additional services that the inspection company can provide, but most likely for an additional fee. And in the case that the inspection company you choose does not provide these additional services, then you might want to hire some specialists that do. For example, anytime I'm working with a buyer who's purchasing a home with a septic tank, that's definitely an additional inspection that I always recommend they get, even if supposedly the tank is brand new, because septic tanks and drain fields can easily run upwards of $20,000 or more. And in my humble opinion, it's totally worth the additional few $100s to know the true conditions of something that could potentially cost me tens of thousands of dollars to replace.
Don't you think?
So know the scope of work that's being included in your general inspection, and also hire out any specialists that you would like to check any specific areas of the home. This could be a roofer, a structural engineer, electrician, plumber, so on. This is your opportunity to check everything. Number 3, be there, be present. Now, I don't mean following the inspector around the entire time, because that's their job, and so leave them to it. But do keep an eye on them and pay attention to the things they're looking at, because even though you're going to be getting a full inspection report with everything that they saw and everything that was found, this might help you in the future just visually remember what to keep an eye on and potentially catch any problems early on that you wouldn't normally have thought anything of, like the beginning of a possible leak or possible evidence of termites or even the beginnings of mold growth.
Ew.
And things like these are just so much easier to nip in the bud before they've grown into a full-blown problem, because they could need extensive treatment. And apart from it just being a great learning experience to attend an inspection, another perk of being present is that a lot of times inspectors will point out things to you during an inspection if they think it's necessary. Now, they don't do this for every little detail, just because an inspection is already very time consuming as it is. And like I mentioned, everything will be on the inspection report, but when it does happen, it's something that my buyers always appreciate, because they get to see whatever it is in person as opposed to just on paper. Number 4, don't get caught up in the cosmetics. The purpose of a home inspection is really to determine the conditions of the 4 most important parts of a home: the roof, the HVAC system, the plumbing, and the electricity. Now, this is not to say that something else can't be the cause of a deal breaker, like maybe 1-inch thick cracks along the side of the house, that's a little concerning. But don't get carried away with things like chipped tiles, paint colors, ugly kitchen hardware, missing caulking. Every house is gonna have some sort of cosmetic issue or something that's not done to your taste. But the good part is that this gives you the opportunity to personalize it and make it your own. And it doesn't have to be right away. You can make these updates little by little, but it's nothing like having to replace a roof or replace plumbing that's about to burst. These would be issues of real concern.
Yikes.
But even then, depending on how much you like the home and if you still want to move forward with it, we do have a couple of options, which brings me to my next tip. Number 5, asking for credits or repairs. Now, 99.9% of all home sales in Florida are done on the as-is contract, which means that sellers are not obligated to pay any sort of repair or credit that the buyer asks for. It's an as-is sale and you get what you see. However, this doesn't mean we can't try. I think it's always worth a shot, even on as-is contracts. It's not guaranteed, but we might be pleasantly surprised like I've been many times in the past.
Hey, that's a nice surprise.
Now, it also depends on what's going on with this particular house too, right? Is it already priced accordingly, considering all the work that it needs? Maybe the sellers have already taken that into account when they priced it. Also, how many other people are lined up for this house? If there's a line out the door, a seller will usually reject any sort of request just because they know that if you don't buy it, someone else will. Again, it's still worth a shot trying, but just know that these factors do play a large role. Now, when we do ask for either a credit or a repair, I usually tend to recommend a credit because then you'll know exactly the caliber of work that was done. If we ask for a repair, we don't really know. But in any case, whether we got a credit, a repair, or nothing, there is always a final walkthrough before closing where we'll walk through the house again and check the property again and make sure that it's in the conditions that we agreed on. If you have any questions for me, my information is down in the description. I would love to hear from you. And now that you know that you definitely need an inspection, if you're wondering what the timeline was from start to finish for buying a house, then watch this video right here where I break down each and every step. Happy watching, and I'll see you on the next one.